Vinyasa. Letting your spine grow taller as your hips settle more into the earth. Just 2 more full cycles of breath. And then drawing hands to heart center. And as we're focusing this week on the limb of yoga called dharana, concentration, or this one pointed focus, maybe there's a singular intention we can invite in today. I've had a lot of folks that I see privately talking about putting their thoughts, their beliefs into action. Maybe there's something around that resonates for you. Let's send it out with a soft sound of Om. Breath in and out to start. Letting your arms peel away from each other, your eyes blink open. We'll stretch the arms up overhead. Just for a moment, reaching up as if the arms started down at the waistband. You might feel your spine grow a little bit taller, maybe wiggle with it a little bit to free up any hitches in your side bodies. And then easy side bend. Your left arm goes down, your right arm goes up. And let your hand find a block or the ground so that you can think of your left side getting longer here. So often we kind of collapse down to get to the earth, but can you consider this left side going up and over? You might even take your left arm out like you're holding a beach ball up overhead. Take one breath here. And then the right arm pulls you back up. The left arm comes to follow. Reach up. Maybe notice a longer left arm already. And then we'll settle at first the right hand down and use it to press down like you're going up and over, like a high jump, how you would press down with that bar and go up and over. Good. Pausing here to lengthen the right side. And then perhaps from that length, the right arm comes up to meet it. Not necessary, only if you're feeling warm and strong through your core already. We'll take one breath here and then let the left arm guide you up. The right arm comes to meet it. And then exhale, easy twist. We'll start to revolve to the left. Let your arms come down to shoulder height. Notice how your shoulder blades now fall down your back. Inhale your way through center. And then we'll go over the other way. Now I know we like to see the screen since it's in front of us. But let's move 2 times side to side and see if your gaze can go with your sternum as if you were holding a peach underneath your chin. And notice if sometimes the twist really wants to happen in the neck. Instead, let the head be like a bobblehead on your dashboard, soft and receptive to your full breath. Good. One more time. Good. And then we'll inhale our way through center. And if you do have blocks underneath your ankles, we'll keep them there for today. Position yourself so you're facing a short end of your mat. And then gather your blocks or gather your outer ankles around your blocks. So when your outer ankles gather around your blocks, you feel tone that resonates all the way up into your low belly. Perhaps so much so that you feel like a shelf, like we could place something on your low back and it would be very stable. Wouldn't roll to the left or the right or down towards your head. We'll keep that as we reach the right leg back behind us. All 5 toes can stay on the ground, and imagine now that you were still gathering around that block. So the left outer ankle's hugging in and your right inner thigh is doing the same. Keep that. You can keep the toes on the ground to enjoy that stretch through your backside, or lift the heel as high as your hip and stretch your left arm forward. Now here, let's find a little movement. So a little bend through your elbows so you can send your collarbones forward, and then inhale. Keep that as you stretch your arm back out. Reach long in a diagonal for one more breath, and then exhale your hand down, your knee down, and regather around these blocks, real or imaginary, between your ankles. So you can even just imagine a block if you don't have one, that you're squeezing your outer ankles around it, even though it's on the inside of your heels. And then stretch your left leg back. All 5 toes start on the ground, finding the level pelvis. And you can keep them there to stretch more through your back body, or fire up the core as you stretch your right arm forward, lift the heel as high as your hip. Finding this diagonal reach, pull your right elbow back by your ribs. Notice how your collarbones spread as you do that. We really want to keep that as we send the right arm forward for one more breath, reaching long from your ring finger to your ring toe on this diagonal. And then exhale, hand down, knee down. Remove your props if you have any. And we'll stretch it back to a child's pose. An active child's pose. So hips settle back, but your fingertips walk forward. And then ground through the elbows now that you're getting this stretch underneath your armpits, and circle out through your wrists. Let the forehead rest. If it's far from the ground, then get a pillow underneath it or a block. Let the back of the neck unwind. And then we'll make our way back up to tabletop. Now we'll take that same kind of pose again, stretching the right leg back behind us, imagining that gathering towards center as we turn this into our modified revolved Ardha Chandrasana. So this time, left arm goes out to your side, your back toes can be up or down. Imagine your right inner arm growing taller. Your right inner arm growing taller, keep that. That'll spread the collarbones just like we did before. And then start to twist to the left, revolving the right ribs. Imagine your left arm is plugged into your shoulder socket, so it's not reaching back behind you. It's not your neck trying to turn you into this twist. It's happening from the rib cage. If your back leg is lifted, reach it straight back. One more breath. Hug your left outer hip in. And then exhale, we'll tap the right toes down if they're not already, and thread the needle, drawing your left shoulder to the earth. Lay your cheek to the ground. Find your breath into your outer shoulder for 2 cycles. Cheek is soft. Imagine you just chewed a gumball and you have all that saliva pooling in your mouth. Good. Right hand right next to your cheek. If it's gone anywhere, bring your right knee down to the ground, and we'll inhale, nice open twist without the leg stretched back behind you. It's a little bit easier. And then exhale, left hand to the ground, stretch the left leg back. All 5 toes can stay on the earth, or they could lift and reach. But really we want to try to keep a level pelvis, which is way easier with the toes on the ground as the right arm reaches out to the side. Big breath in. Tall inner left arm. So pushing the ground away, the inside of your arm getting longer, and then revolve the left ribs to the right. Remember our principle of satya, of truth. We try to find that here in our practice. So many things try to find escape valves, like the arm winging back, the head turning, the hip shivering or swaying to the side. Firm your right outer hip in, reach out through the crown of your head to find a nice long line. And then exhale, we'll dip the left toes to the ground and thread the right arm underneath. Threading the needle here, nice stretch through the outer arm as we've been working on arm balances. Some of you I've seen a few times this week.
So that stretch might be much needed underneath the shoulder blade where we're cultivating strength to be on our arms for such a long time. One more breath. Good. And then pressing into your left hand right near your cheek. Bring the left knee down and open it up. Twisting to the right, hand down. Walk your knees back. Coming into a knee down plank. So shift your shoulders back over your wrists. And then we're gonna flow a little bit here between our child's pose with the thighs nearer to each other, big toes apart, rocking back. Bend your elbows and start to snake your way forward. Lifting the space about 3 inches below your belly button as you scooch yourself all the way down to the ground and stretch forward. Cobra pose. Lower about halfway down. We'll press back up through that knee down plank and then stretch it all the way back. Child's pose. Active arms, forearms resisting away from the earth. Bend the elbows and squeeze them in, almost like you're trying not to come to the earth, like your low belly's resisting the way down, but then you stretch it forward into a cobra pose. Exhale, about halfway down, press the ground away, all the way back, child's pose. Let's do that a few more times. Inhaling, snaking your way forward, trying to keep your collarbones wide. So you land in cobra and just the shoulder blades remove down the back, about halfway down, so there's still a lift in your chest as you press back up through your knee down plank to child's pose. Trust your body to keep going. Inhaling slowly forward, bending your elbows, snaking your way forward, waking up the backs of the arms. Find that right peach back under your chin so you're not jutting the chin forward, and then come back through your plank to child's pose. One more time on your own. Find the rhythm of your breath. Our number one teacher in this Vinyasa practice. That's it. Good. And then next time we all find ourselves in this knee down plank, go ahead and tuck your toes under and gather your outer arms in. So that means the crease of your elbows pointing more forward towards the short end of your mat. Lift your knees and hover them just off the ground. So it's like you're in a floating tabletop. Notice how your connection with the earth has changed. It's fully dependent on your hands. Can you be heavy into your fingerprints, heavy into the knuckles where your rings would be if you had them, and light through the wrist crease, and then send your hips up and back. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Your forearms still being pulled forward towards the short end of your mat. Big breath in and downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Big breath out. 2 more breaths here. Hold. Awesome. And then we'll slowly, without shifting your hips side to side, walk your hands back to your feet. Hopefully the feet are nice and wide, but if they're not, step them even wider. Let's all go really wide, actually. So the toes point even maybe off your mat like mine are. Come to a half lift. You might find bringing the ground up will be helpful to find your shoulders near as high as your hips. And then exhale, we're just gonna bend the knees and send your knees towards your triceps as your heart lifts. The inhale sends the hips high, the head low. And the exhale will lower the hips, the knees sliding outside your upper arms. A couple times like that. Now notice if your chest is curled in. Can you press your elbows into your knees or thighs to keep a broad chest like a superhero? 2 more times. It doesn't have to be a lot of movement. It could be very slight, just pressing the knees away, getting lighter on your fingertips. Last one. strong through your belly, like all of this movement is starting right at your hip crease. Good. Next time you find yourself in your squat, we'll push the earth away, root down to rise up. And exhale, step your feet to parallel, Tadasana. Still facing the short end of your mat. Maybe close your eyes and remember that intention. Stretching your arms back up. We'll come into a little half crescent shape. So get really light on your left leg. Like it could just hover off the ground, but only you can tell that it's hovering. It's kind of like my dog, when I tell it to sit, she barely hovers her bum off the ground. Imagine you're doing that with the foot. I swear I'm standing on 2 feet, you would say. And then the left hand gets the right wrist, and we'll go up and over this hovering leg. So again, like we did seated, can you think of lengthening the left side away from your hovering leg? Good. One more breath. So it's like you're growing long towards where the wall meets the ceiling. And then inhale your way through center and exhale, hands by your side. So Craig, next time, bend over the leg that's hovering rather than away from it. We'll sweep our arms up again. The right hand gets the left wrist, and then hovering the right leg. So it's just barely touching the ground. You can feel it, you can perceive it, but it's not bearing weight as you go up and over it. Good. And in that way, we're really elongating from our side waist, the muscles of our core, rather than just swinging the hips to one side or even collapsing through this side, which we might do. One more breath here, and then we'll inhale our way back through center and exhale, hands through heart center. Big breath in, reach your arms out and up. Exhale, flat back fold this time into your Uttanasana. So feet can be together or hips distance apart. Make that decision based on how this feels in your low back. Some people experience a little bit more openness, spaciousness if the feet are wider. I know I do. Reach the crown of your head down towards the earth. One more breath in your Uttanasana. And then we'll come to our half lift. Consider this like plank pose. And in fact, we'll just walk our hands out until we arrive in plank pose. So our half lift is really just plank pose with the legs as stilts. Now we find our plank, pausing to send your heart and chest forward. One more breath here. And then we'll come forward, tippy toes, and go nice and slow all the way down to the ground. Hips and shoulders land at the same time. Inhale, cobra pose, sending the heart forward. Shoulder blades down your back, maybe lifting one more rib with your big inhale. Exhale, halfway down, pressing up through plank. Maybe this time the knees are lifted as you come straight up. And then back downward facing dog. Big breath in, even more breath out. Let's step the big toes together. Send your right leg high. And from here, keep your right leg straight and just turn your right toes to the right. So leg is straight, your leg is turning to the right from deep within your hip. In fact, it can continue to reach back even as you just turn your toes to the right. Notice if your left heel is trying to move. Your hips are trying to swivel. Keep your pelvis just where it is and just your leg turns to the right. Good, and then we'll slowly turn the toes back down and step the leg right between the center of our two thumbs, setting up warrior two. Now that action you just did is exactly what we want here. So the action in your hip is like you were trying to turn your leg to the right in that three-legged dog. Good. And for a moment, let's straighten the arms, straighten the legs, stretch up like our arms start at our waistband. And then exhale, hands come down to the rib cage. And we're just gonna find where our ribs are today. So notice if your ribs are moving out to the front of your body Or maybe you're kind of hunkered in. Can you find right in between and then wrap your right ribs back towards your left leg. Firm your left leg back. That's it. Nice, Cynthia. And then send your right knee forward, coming right back into your warrior two. Your arms reach long. So we think of the back arm symbolizing where we've been, what we know, our experiences, and our front arm, where we're going. And we're aware of both of these arms, maybe more aware as time goes on. But we settle right in the center. We let the breath hold us up. We know from these experiences that nothing lasts forever. So maybe we settle a little bit deeper into that work of the hip. And then keep it as you tilt forward, drawing your right elbow softly to your right thigh. And just go ahead and pause here. Reach back towards your outer left leg. So as you reach back, you notice how long and straight this whole line is. If it's not, if you find yourself, maybe that's not long and straight, then settle your hip down. Good. And then we'll take the left arm forward and reach it up overhead. And in an extension of this nice long line from the heel, soften the neck. The gaze could be down. Some of us might be able to keep wrapping the right hip underneath us and reach towards the earth without losing any of that long line. One more breath, stretching the left arm up overhead. And then exhale, hands to the ground. And we'll go ahead and swivel onto the left knee. Walk your right foot over to the right. Bringing the ground up might be helpful so that you can find a little movement in this hip. Send your hips back, straightening the right leg on this diagonal away from you. And then bend back into the right knee. Just forward and back a couple times. Let your breath move you. Might be fast, might be slow. One more time. And then we'll find ourselves forward. The right toes point a little bit out to the right. So mine are pointing a little bit at this plant, but not a lot. Just enough so that I can get that similar feeling of wrapping the hip underneath me. And then sending the pelvis forward. Forward, forward. Your left hip might move forward. But it's almost like your low belly's resisting back. Like you're trying to shift from your low belly back into that straight leg position. Now from here, see if you can reach your left leg energetically back. So it's reaching back. It doesn't have to go anywhere. I'm lifting my leg just to illustrate this idea of reaching back. Good. Notice how broad your chest is. Maybe you can keep that as you send your arms forward and maybe up. Reaching the left leg back to get a little bit taller. Maybe your gaze can float up. One more breath here. And then hands come inside your knee again. With or without blocks, we'll lift the left leg. And then we're going to try to re-find that open chest as we step forward, finding our malasana to stay. So options here, you could stack your blocks so that you have a little stool and you can focus on being nice and upright. This would be a good choice if you have low back tension today, or if that happens after practice sometimes. Or you might settle in a place about 4 inches higher than where you could go. So I could drop my bum to the ground, but I would choose to lift up and pause here, finding that open chest. Maybe even the arms reach up. 2 more breaths wherever you're at. Maybe you can even reclose your eyes and find that point of focus. Good. We'll take 1 more inhale and then press into your heels to rise all the way up from wherever you are. Exhale, Tadasana. Ha. Good. Pausing in your Tadasana. Notice how your right leg feels really grounded, maybe a little other sensations. Let's settle into this groundedness, finding our tree pose. So you'll ground into the right leg and take your left knee just out to the side. Now pay attention to this hip. We're going to firm the right hip in as we walk the left foot up the shin. Imagine that your hip bones are pointing straight ahead. They will have a tendency to want to veer to the left. This leg is very heavy. Well, my leg is very heavy. So the pelvis wants to follow it. It takes a lot of work from deep within your core to keep the pelvis pointing straight ahead. Good. If your foot's on your inner thigh, you can guide your inner thigh to the space back behind you. You might notice your tailbone getting heavy, and from there, your arms might be inspired to reach out and up. Staying wherever you can keep a calm, cool focus, as Patanjali instructs us to do in the Yoga Sutras. The idea is as we practice these poses day after day, we learn more about them, yes. We build strength and flexibility, yes. But most of all, we learn about ourselves. Our ability to find truth of focus, find ease, maybe even start to find new limits, like stretching up and over your bent left knee in that crescent shape again. We'll inhale our way back through center, bring your left knee back to center, and as 2 feet hit the ground, exhale, forward fold, let it go. Inhale, lifting halfway. Exhale, we can step back and move through downward dog and your cobra and all that jazz, or skip it, find a plank to hold, or we'll just meet back in downward facing dog. That's it. Honor where you're at in this moment. It could be different than last night, different than yesterday or last week. Good. From downward facing dog, step your 2 feet together. And then send your left leg back behind you. Yeah, from deep within your hip, can you spin the leg to the left? Straight leg. That's it. Notice if your whole pelvis wants to lift. I would love for that leg bone to turn in the socket. That's it, Craig, that's it. And yeah, maybe that means your leg's a little bit lower, or this is the work that we need in Warrior 2. Turn your toes back down, and we'll step right between the 2 thumbs. So we get that heel to back arch alignment as you drop your right foot, angling it almost parallel to the front end of your mat. Come on up, V2. We'll straighten the arms, straighten the legs, so we really commit into the power of our legs, our connection to the earth, and then slide back in, wrapping this left hip underneath you. Let's bring the hands back to the rib cage. Where is it today? Something we really don't think all that much about. Maybe take some circles. Think about how mobile it actually can be, and then settle right over the pelvis. You might imagine a line from your left rib cage to your right hip kind of cinching tight. Keep that as you send your arms back out, finding your connection in your right arm to your history, your ancestry, and your left arm reaching forward, plowing a new healthful path. 2 more breaths in Virabhadrasana 2, maybe settling a little bit deeper, a little more committed before you hinge forward, reaching your right arm back towards your outer foot. As you reach back, you'll notice you take out that tendency to come into our side bends. Side bends are awesome, but not for this pose. This pose is all about angles. Reach back. Keep this openness through your chest as you take your arm up overhead, long on the diagonal. That's it. Your left arm might reach towards the earth. Good. And then find length. Reach your sacrum back behind you as the crown of your head reaches forward. That's it. 2 more breaths. Nuchita Hasta Pajvokkanasana. And then we'll sweep the right arm all the way down to the ground, bringing the ground up if needed. Lower the right knee and walk your left foot over to the left. We'll go in and out of this lizard lunge. So you're on a little bit of a diagonal, forward and back, forward and back. Kind of greasing the wheels of this hip for a moment before we come to pause in another bent knee pose. And really focus on your right leg. So it might just be, it seems like it's just there, but could it be active? Could you consider your right leg reaching back as your heart stretches forward? A little bit of extension through the whole spine, maybe. The answer is yes, and you take your arms up, reaching up like you grabbed onto it. Someone's lowered a trapeze, and you could hang from it. Maybe your gaze could even go up. One more breath. And then an exhale brings the hands back down to the inside of your foot with or without blocks. Keep that width through your chest as you lift your right knee and step forward back to your Malasana. So again, you could make a tower, you could find a seat, just a little bit of support could help you get into your legs, into a real hip opening here. Or we've been practicing our arm balances, finding your hands on the ground, gathering your elbows in by squeezing your knees. Think of pressing your upper arm bones out, and maybe start to rock forward, thinking of lifting your wrist crease. Maybe one toe reaches back behind you, maybe two toes coming together, spreading your collarbones along the way. Find wherever you are for right now for 2 more breaths. And then we'll all bring the heels back down. If they've lifted, press down into the ground and just rise all the way up. Exhale, Samasthiti. Go ahead and lace your palms. Press them out away from you, soft elbows. And then bring them back in and up towards your chin. A little bit of traction, like you've laced your hands and you're trying to pull them apart. This is how my kids try to untie their shoelaces. Just yank. Notice it gets tighter, but you actually might get a little space through the wrist crease. Good. And then let them slide out. Release. Grounding down into the left leg. Start to bend the right knee. Heavy through your tailbone, level through the hips. Bring the hands to your hip bones. Let them stay pointing just where they are as the knee moves to the side. We realize from our work in our three-legged dog how difficult that is. How much the pelvis is. This all works together. That's what we spent so much time learning. And now we're kind of trying to tease it apart. Walk the foot up the leg, maybe to the inner thigh. Sometimes that makes it more difficult to keep this levelness. Find where you're at on this side today. If your foot's to your inner thigh, it can help guide the thigh muscles back to the space behind you. And from that, you might stretch your arms out and up. Find softness around the base of the neck. And maybe that crescent shape up and over your floating leg. Find 3 more breaths. I'm coming out. You stay in. Maybe your eyes closed for the most challenge. Taking your sense of vision away. That's it. Lovely, everybody. We'll inhale back to center and exhale, Tadasana. Good. Finding the front of your mat if you're not already there. We'll move into Utkatasana, sometimes called chair pose, but really it's fierce, awkward pose. So send your hips back, bending your knees. But maybe you could even orient so you could see yourself and try to see the angle of your spine to look as straight as that of your shins. And then once you have the straightness the same, could the angle be the same? So if there were a line from your tail out the crown of your head, it would be the same as the one that could come off your knees. You'd have like 2 diagonal parallel lines here. That's it. And then send your arms forward. Take them nice and wide. And reach out to try to touch the sky. Could you imagine pulling your heels? Your knees stay right over the heel. But could you pull your heels back towards the short end of your mat? Maybe sit a little bit lower, like there is a tiny chair back behind you. Nice, Annabelle. One more breath, chest up, thumbs reach up towards the sky. And then exhale, forward fold, let it go. Lift halfway, breathe in. And we'll step the left leg to the very back of the mat, this time over to the left side, setting up our warrior one. So heavy through the left heel, send your arms forward, and then sweep them back like you're backstroking here. Good, hands come to your back pockets. Let them help steer your hips so that they're pointing straight ahead. Press off that left heel. Maybe bring your right knee a little bit more over the center of the heel. Good. Now walk your hands up your ribs, square them to the short end of your mat, and then we'll take the arms up. One more side bend. The right hand gets the left wrist, and we'll go up and over. Looking for a whole lot of stretch through the back left leg as you come into your crescent shape. Maybe the ribs go back. Maybe they come forward toward your right thigh to get a little bit more into your psoas. One more breath here. And then we'll inhale our way back to center. Stretch the arms up. And exhale, straighten the right leg. Sweep the arms back behind you. Bump your left leg forward and in. And squeeze your palms together. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. And we're just going to go halfway down into Parsvottanasana. So bring your back ribs into your arms and start to lower down, lifting your thumbs maybe to hover off your bum. Think of reaching the top of your head forward as your right hip hooks back. Find your breath here, moving into the spaces around your collarbone, like you were filling up those spaces with little packing peanuts. 2 more breaths. And then we'll come halfway if we've gone further, and then all the way up, reaching into the left leg and stepping forward. Release your bind. Now we're already really grounded into this right leg. Send your right arm up, reaching as if it started at your waistband, and we're just going to bend the left knee and see if we can bring the heel towards the left fingertips a couple times, up and down. Finding some strength along this hamstring. We have 3 more breaths here. We could stay with the up and down, or your palm flips towards the left and you find the inside of your foot. Just 2 more breaths, maybe pressing foot into hand. A very gentle, not Taranjasana dancer pose. Your next inhale brings you back up. If you've tipped, we'll exhale, release hands, release foot. Good. Send your sit bones back, reach down towards the ground. Try to find that angle where you have 2 parallel lines between your shins and your spine, and then exhale, let it go, forward fold. Reach the crown of your head towards the earth. Inhale, lift halfway. And then we'll send the the right leg to the very back of your mat and a little bit to the right. Angling your toes far enough forward that you can keep the heel down, but still wrap the right foot forward, and then come on up. Sweeping your arms all the way back behind you. Let's find what our pelvis is doing today on these legs. Is it bonked out to the left? Can you find your whole left footprint and encourage your level pelvis forward? Bring your ribs to square towards the short end of your mat. And then again, send your arms out. No, Virabhadrasana 1. That's it, really nice. Your arms can be wide so they can be straight. Getting this feeling of, I'm connecting with this little sun break that's happening right now in this moment. 1 more breath here. And then we'll sweep our arms back behind us. Bump the hip forward or the foot forward and lace your hands. If you go ahead and switch the way, so the other index finger is closest to your thumbs, that's probably the opposite way. Square your shoulders forward, nice open chest. And let's try to pause just halfway down. So as we really reach into the right leg, it's like you're pulling your left leg away from the ground, back into the hip socket. And then maybe there's space for the arms to lift off the bum. Reach along through all sides of your neck. So everything's working here in your pyramid pose. Just 2 more breaths. And then we'll let an inhale guide down into both feet to ground us and come back up. And exhale, stepping forward. Maybe feeling a little bit longer through your left leg now. That's great. We'll keep the shoulders squared forward. Send your left arm up. So with that heavy leg, you can rebound back up. And then pull your right heel towards your seat. Maybe tap. Inhale down. Exhale, lifting straight up. Yeah, up and down 3 times. And then maybe as you turn your palm to the right, you can find the inside of the foot. 3 more breaths, straight and strong. Through the left leg, pressing foot into hand, and then send your heart and your squared chest forward. And inhale brings you back up. And exhale will all release back. Tadasana. Oh, awesome. So our last twist, if you have a wall, let's make our way there. Do you guys have walls for props? Handy? Or that chair will work too. I'm going to use this ball to show you how you could use either a chair or a wall. So we'll pretend this is a chair, maybe a stool since it's so little. And we're going to measure the length of our legs from the wall. So you'll turn towards the wall and just see how far away you need to be to get your foot up onto your wall, if you're using it, to have both legs straight. And then once you find that, spin yourself around and we'll come to our half lift. So pausing in that half lift position, placing the block right underneath your left hand. And either you could be on the ground or the block is really helpful for this one, sending the left leg back behind you. So as you send the left leg back, you find your toes on the wall, your whole foot on the wall, but the toes are pointing straight down. Now lift your back ribs up, like you're fluffing up, like you have clouds in your back ribs. Your gaze might go a little bit more down. And then we'll start to revolve the ribs to the right, pressing off your left foot on the wall to help you twist to the right. Your Parivrita Ardha Chandrasana, your right arm might float up like it's an extension of your left. And find about 3 breaths there. This could also be done with your leg a bit lower, finding your toes to the back of a chair or to the seat of the chair. And then keep letting that help you keep your pelvis level as you revolve. Last breath. And then we'll inhale our way back to center, stepping your foot softly off the wall or the ball or the chair and forward fold. Shake the head, yes. Nod it, no. And then second side, find your half lift. Position your block in line with your right foot. And then we'll stand onto the left foot and send the right leg back behind us. Finding a prop to set the foot on or that solid reach into the wall as you push the wall away. Your left hand comes to your heart and you can start to revolve your right ribs to the left. You could also do this with the leg on the ground or on a block, twisting toward your straight front leg. Good. Or without any prop at all. 2 more breaths wherever you are, Ardha Chandrasana. Imagine qualities of the moon here. So we think luminescent, sparkling. Maybe we can unearth some layers of that quality. 1 more breath. And we'll inhale our way back to center. Take your foot off the prop or the wall and exhale, forward fold. Let it go. Shake the head, yes. Nod it, no. And then we'll go ahead and lift halfway, step your feet nice and wide, traveling through your last malasana. Hips flow, chest rises, and then making your way all the way down. So you might use your props and settle your bum down. And take your legs nice and wide. I like to angle myself towards the long end of the mat so that my heels can stay on the mat and my bum's off. I just like the feeling of squishy underneath the heels as we move towards our wide leg forward fold on the ground. So here, if you find yourself rounded back, then sit up on a couch cushion or a block or even a few blocks. A little bend in your knees is also great so that ultimately your toes can point straight up. And then we're going to try to move the pelvis independently of the legs. So you can bring your hands to your pelvis here, your hip bones, and try to move them through your legs. The toes continue to point straight up. They might be inclined. You might come up and down, especially if you have tenderness through your back. Finding this up and down might be the best way to start to get into the inner thigh and groin muscles. We'll take 3 more breaths, maybe settling, but thinking of your belly button moving towards the ground rather than your head or even your chest. Last full cycle. And then lift the belly button off the ground to come all the way back up. Good. We'll help the legs together and reorient towards the short end of your mat. Please have your blocks nearby if you have them. Let's round down nice and slow. One last little contraction of the belly. Reach your arms up overhead. That might be enough, or maybe stretch the legs long in a full body stretch. Let the legs spin in and out, windshield wipering the legs. And then we'll bend the knees and plant the feet flat on the ground. So if you have a block, that's a great option. Otherwise, a couch cushion or even a book will work. We're going to bring the block right underneath your pelvis. The lowest level is probably good for today since we did so much bending at the hip crease. You'll lower your pelvis onto the blocks. Keep your gaze straight up and pull your right knee in towards your chest. So your right knee comes in. You may have to adjust your block so it feels comfortable in your low back, not pushing into your bones. And then we'll keep the right knee and start to slide the left leg away from you. Could go a little, could go all the way straight. We'd like it to stay on the ground for today. Maybe play with turning the left toes in or turning them out to find a different release through the hip flexor, low belly. We'll take 1 more breath here. And then keeping the right knee, slowly pull your left heel in. Once the foot's on the ground, set your right foot down and gather the left knee into your chest or armpit. We could stay here. This might be enough. We're almost like in a bridge pose. But then extending the right leg long could also be an option. Getting into these muscles that are just automatically shortened when we sit for long periods of time. And when things sit shortened, even if they're not having to work, they can kind of get locked in that position. So now we're encouraging them to open up, to soften, to hydrate. One more breath. And then we'll drag the right heel back in, place the foot on the ground, let the left leg come to meet it. And then moving through one real, more traditional, I shouldn't say real, more traditional bridge pose. Walk your shoulder blades underneath you. So it almost feels like your shoulder blades will touch your spine. And then you might be able to bind your hands around your block since you're still up on it. You're on your upper arm bones now in the back of your head and your heels. You could stay here or press into the pinky side of your hand and lift the hips. Imagine, though, that there's a counterweight on your pelvis that's trying to draw it back down to the ground. Press into your upper arm bones to keep lifted. Find your breath, packing those collarbones all the way out to the edges. Just 3 more breaths here. And then find a slow descent, unbinding your hands first. And then we'll move into a twist. So before you extend your legs long, shift your hips about an inch or 2 over to the right. Gather your right knee into your chest and send your left leg long. The left hand gets the right knee. Open up your right arm like it's a wing with the palm up, and then guide the knee across your body, only as far as it feels good. Could be a little, could be a lot. Let your breath stretch out in the other direction of your knee. Notice as we've gotten to the ground, maybe your rhythm of breath has changed. Maybe your thoughts have also slowed. Just noticing. One more breath. And we'll inhale back to center. Place that foot on the ground, shift your hips to center. And then a little bit over the other direction, gathering your left knee into your chest, your right leg goes long. Right hand gets the left knee as the left wing opens up. And then we'll take that twist. It's so different for everyone. What feels nurturing and nourishing. Choose what suits you in this moment. For 2 more breaths. Taking your gaze back up. We'll draw the knee back through center. Shift your hips so that you feel like your sides are parallel to the long end of your mat. And then squeeze both knees into your chest. Please take this moment for any other poses you might need, movements. Otherwise, we'll set up for a brief rest, a shavasana, extending the legs toward the corners of your mat. A little lift under the back of the thighs can be helpful if you feel any tenderness in your low back or anywhere in your back, actually. Let's take a big breath in through the nose. Sigh it out through the mouth. And I chose to bring up Dharana today, one of the 8 limbs of yoga. As I was considering how RBG could inspire our practice. And this limb came automatically to mind. She lived in this limb of yoga, didn't she? Focus, concentration. Letting all of the obstacles, many, many obstacles, fade to back as she plowed forward. In her words, she used that to fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. Invite your deeper breath back. Moving out towards fingers and toes. If and when you feel ready, gather your knees back to your chest. Maybe rock a little side to side before coming up to your seat. Any comfortable seat. Remembering that intention, if you set one, or maybe finding it now. One to take with you off your mat into your practice of putting your actions to movement. Draw hands to heart center and join me out loud or in your mind's eye for soft sound of Om. Breath in and out to clear. All that is clear, discerning, unchanging about you, I salute. Namaste. Thank you guys for coming this noon hour.
Carlie, the practice was wonderful. Thank you.
Good. You're
Thank you.
welcome.
I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Do
Oh
you
yeah,
remember?
massage.
Yes.
I was like,
Okay.
I'm not teaching tomorrow morning, am I? Yeah, see you for massage. Cool.
Okay. Okay.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming, Craig. I hope you're feeling good.
Yeah, I'm in a much better mood now. I'm not as frantic. Ready for my next meeting. You have a good one. Bye.
Good luck.